what's not working, have a candid conversation about various aspects of AI as it impacts marketing today. So I'm your host. My name is Sharad. I'm the founder CEO of Vidoso. We are a system of content creation, personalization, and governance. Our mission is to make AI accessible to every marketer and take them away from prompt engineering and prompt editing hell to a world where they can generate campaign assets on brand, personalized, systematically, consistently, and at scale. So we've got Sylvia and Jeff with me. Sylvia is the VP of Revenue Marketing at Docebo, and Jeff is the head of demand at Seismic. Sylvia and Jeff, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to be here.
I would love for both of you to say a few words about your role, and then we can go into a few topics.
Sylvia, you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. I'm Sylvia. I am VP of Revenue Marketing at Docebo. What that means is the team that I work with is responsible for our ultimate measure, which is pipeline, and we execute and strategize that across lots of different channels, your usual channels of demand, like anything paid, organic. And I also support some of our 24/7 seller, which is our website, and enterprise and account-based strategies as well. So excited to talk to you all today about AI.
And for my world, I oversee our content team, our campaigns team, life cycle, ABX Center of Excellence, and campaign operations function. So all focused on driving demand and helping to focus on not just an inbound number, but an all-bound number, working very closely with our field marketing and our SDR teams. So, and I love to touch and tinker with technology and very passionate about this project, but also think it's an incredibly disruptive time to be a marketer, candidly. So very, very much looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Jeff. And we've got Sarah with me as well. Sarah is also our co-host. She's our head of marketing at Vidoso. Sarah, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, well, I'm just excited to be here to hear about one of the topics I'm really excited to hear about is moving from experimentation in AI, which I think we've all been doing the last few years, to really building something that proves ROI. And so I think that's a topic that I'm really passionate about. We all love to experiment, but let's actually make a difference and get something started here.
Wonderful. No, thank you all. And attendees, please feel free to ask questions, drop your questions in the chat. Um, broad set of topics to cover. One, as Sarah said, is how do we transition from just experimentation to operationalizing AI in marketing? How do we go from ad hoc acts of marketing to a more systematized use and deployment of AI? We also want to chat a little bit about practical use cases. Where is Sylvia and Jeff deploying AI in their marketing organization? What use cases are they lighting up? What's working? What's not working? What are some practical tips? We'll also go a little bit into personalization. I think hyper personalization is certainly one of the avenues of AI. We will talk about, okay, where AI is in that journey, and what's working and what's not working. And also in terms of, okay, how is AI impacting the skill set of the organization? Is it allowing, different sub-functions of marketing to collaborate, interlock more as, some of that skills set, starts to flatten out, or is it just talk of the street? Um, yeah, so those are the broad set of topics. Let's start with the first one, which is how are we deploying AI in the organizations, right? So Sylvia and Jeff, we're curious about how have you applied AI? What use cases are you lighting up? What have you seen work?
Sure, I can get us kicked off. I mean, that's um a massive topic. I'll try to distill it into a few buckets. We use AI um in a few different ways. There's, I think, tools that are specifically brought in for AI use cases. Some examples of that are the efforts that we have on, for example, AI content generation or workflows for SEO and content purposes. We are using AI through insights and research. So how we get smarter about understanding our audience. Why? So that we can run better campaigns and run better marketing that converts faster, better customers at the end of the day. We use AI to automate tasks that are time consuming, as most of us have used AI, right? We use um, uh, systems that we're still, to be honest, hacking together to understand how a team member that used to spend hours, for example, um, doing research or writing copy or creating an SEO outline can now spend minutes reviewing the output of, a system instead of doing that themselves. So that I think across the board, but to be honest, I think what is the most um, exciting about using AI at a company like Docebo is that we have a technology team, an IT team that even though we're publicly traded, even though we're very secure in lots of different ways, and what that means is that good luck with procurement and good luck with getting anything approved. We have a very strong culture of embracing AI, so we run a lot of proof of concept projects. What that means is this during this period, we want to prove this out, right? And what that means is it has a specific intent. So, for example, I want to start building landing pages that are highly customized at scale where the content is, XYZ. That's exactly what we want to prove. And this is the tool that we want to use. And this is the period that is going to run into or run by. So, um, we run a lot of those projects, and a lot of those use new technologies or technologies we're building ourselves. So I think, that's something that I'm very passionate about and proud of. My team alone this quarter is running over 30 different proof of concept projects that are all like the point of the proof of concept is it has to be AI powered in some way. So lots of experimentation for sure.
It's funny, you're hitting on a lot of the same things I would go to. Yeah, it's IT is typically seen as a concern area as you get into this whole world. We do have an AI steer code that does have to look at and approve and all those kinds of things before anything can go through, but they do have a tendency to say yes, right? If as long as it passes the security sniff test and all those kinds of things, which are hypercritical in the space. And they've also given us a lot of broad access to tools inside internally with obviously clear guidance and things, everything from Copilot to GPT and whatnot. But yeah, it's been interesting. I think there's a lot of pressure on IT orgs to say yes to AI, which is kind of nice being a marketer. But going back to your original question, like where and how are we using one thing I think marketers don't give ourselves potentially enough credit for is a lot of us have been using AI for a long time. It just was called machine learning uh, back in the day, right? GPT kind of turned that world around as you go through that. So we're using it in context of things like our ABM strategies, tools like Sixth Sense and others that are out there where you've got, machine learning and models and all those kinds of things working in the background and all those pieces. We're using it in landing page personalization and like next best action or offer type things of, hey, this prospect should see this type of content next and things along those lines with varying tools. And then all the way down to really discrete things like how can we have a faster throughput on executive comms or an executive point of view and actually training them up to reflect an executive's voice as you go through that. An area we've had a lot of traction in is in content. Well, but that's revealed another bottleneck. Maybe we'll get into it down the road. But like taking traditional video and getting a transcript out of that. Very often that's a form of AI. And then how do I take that and actually piece that up into a lot of different pieces and parts for YouTube and social ads and all those kinds of things. But then how do I take that transcript and turn that into a blog, an ebook, right? All kinds of different things that are downstream of that. Like we just had a customer conference in 2 days, a bunch of tracks going on in each one of them. How do I turn that into an ebook, or how do I turn that into meaningful material to share out to everybody else And the efficiency there going from, well, my content team has to probably listen to each one of those 2 or 3 times, take notes. That's hours or days of just consumption, then synthesis on top of that to then production can be often done and achieved in minutes. So we're using it a ton in efficiency in terms of kind of brand voice policing a little bit, actually making sure we're on brand, we're doing those kinds of things. And then similar to Sylvia, we've probably got well over 30 experiments going on, people who have ideas. We actually just had an AI hackathon where people they formed teams, they tried ideas, they got their results and what they had, they pitched them up, and we're actually implementing and purchasing a couple tools as a result of that. So it's really across the board as to how we're using it, but there is still a lot of experimentation happening.
I think the common thread is, we're also starting to see the emergence of this, AI steering committees or, AI teams that are really forward. They are both building, hacking, experimenting, and also looking at like the vendor landscape and essentially coming and recommending tools. So the good news for AI native companies who are selling to marketing is that, okay, IT is a lot more friendly now than ever before. And you have at least AI forward companies and AI forward leaders such as yourself are actually actively pursuing internal experimentation and external, pilots and so forth. So a good time to be an AI native MarTech company. Um, I think it goes, Jeff. I want to build on what you shared, which is, and Sylvia, you too, which is, so some are these local pockets of experimentation, right? So very use case specific personalization or landing page personalization or copywriting and so forth. Let's build specific build specific sort of tools or agents for that. Um, and then there is, okay, well, how do we get our content in our brand voice and personalized, and the entire team is sort of working off of a common foundation of marketing guardrails. uh, I'm curious on that note, Sylvia and Jeff, like how you might have sort of thought about how do we build codification, how do we codify marketing in terms of our brand voice, our personas and segments, and all of those things that actually feed into campaign and content, that is sort of hard to achieve with like a stateless consumer AI chatbot. um, any sort of thoughts on that?
Um, that's interesting. I think we honestly still have a long way to go. I've seen some interesting resources out there about how some companies are doing that on content and design specifically. Um, like building strong parameters with AI and then unleashing scale, right? Because ultimately, you want to make sure that I think the example that I saw that I was very impressed by was Midjourney, specifically, how some folks create specific codes inside Midjourney that understand your brand uh, design and visual identity really well. And then anytime you use that style, that code to generate new imagery, it will always be on brand, right? So, like, that I thought was really fascinating. And I can search the specific video that I was watching where they walk through how they do it. Super cool. But how we are trying to, I guess, um, codify things. We're starting with just really understanding our audience better. So we have an audience insights hub that we're building, right? Because information about our audience is everywhere. We all have access to how many, like, not enough fingers to count how many tools we have in marketing, that all give us different signals, different intelligence about the audience. But are we actually using it, right? Like, do we actually read Salesforce notes about a prospect, about a customer? Do reps actually put Salesforce notes about their prospects, right? So, um, what we're doing is trying to piece all of that together with AI and almost build, like, like bring the data to the middle and put AI on top of it to understand it to as marketers, right? Like, not how many opportunities do we have in this segment, but instead, what are this segment's top pain points this quarter? And then have marketing, all of marketing, use that as the baseline for any time that they want to create a campaign, that they want to create copy, that they want to talk to customers, that they want to understand customer touch points. So that is in place right now. We have an audience insights AI product and experience, like, and again, built internally for ourselves, where we are pulling all of those data points together and then having the team use that as the kind of like the intelligence baseline for anything that they run or put together. So that applies to content marketers, to designers when they're trying to relate to the audience when they're designing, to demand marketers when they're thinking of campaigns or ad copy or landing pages. So that's, I mean, it's still a long way from truly uh, codifying brand voice and all of that, but at least we're trying to centralize how we learn about our audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's definitely. Oh, go ahead, Sharad.
No, so we were just going to say that essentially this is elevation of highest value context, right? So I think this is really context engineering and baking in, the core intelligence that only humans within the company, right? Your frontier front office, sales and marketing, right? Product, they're talking to customers, they're on the prospect calls, and then through all of that are distilled. Okay, here are the pillars, here are the pain points, here are all the pieces of content we need to produce. But today there's no centralization of that, and there's no reuse of that in every copy in our in content. So this is what we call here like context engineering and really codifying context. So there's obviously the secular parts of marketing, which is brand voice and audience understanding, which will apply sort of horizontally. But there's also this temporal and these things, these pain points in positioning, and there's new competitor, like that thing changes, right? Quarter to quarter, month to month changes. So that's actually pretty wonderful. Jeff?
Yeah, no, you hit on the bottleneck I was hinting at earlier. You kind of hit on, although I haven't tried Midjourney for this yet, so we might have to go down that road. But I mean, right, one of the most common things marketers are asked to produce all the time are slides and things along those lines. And even getting like you've got your brand template and then getting that into a tool that can actually produce in that. You might love all the content that comes out, but overlaying visual identity and all those things are still just it's not there yet. I have yet to see something that's fully kind of delivering in that vein. So it's one of those interesting pieces where you almost have to build steps into your process because the agents, even connecting the dots between them, are still not there. You still need the human to take it from place to place. But to your comment on context, it's everything, right? It's one of the things that the holy grails of attribution we've been after for such a long time, understanding the touch points that actually lead to a conversion to a conversation. And then you add in the creative, what was the ad copy? What was the landing page copy? Where are they in their intent buying cycle? What's the persona, right? Who else are they looking at? Like all of those different elements. At some point, AI will be able to ingest and actually create an incredibly hyper tailored journey that's fully contextual. But again, we're still super far off from that. We're still just getting hey, are the things that AI is producing on voice, on brand from a both, voice and visual element. To your comment on, is sales actually putting in the notes, or is there enough notes in our, system of record of Salesforce to use a tool like Agentforce to summarize, hey, this was the campaign that this account was in. Here's all the research information that we have and all these pieces and parts around it to that end. But the other part too that is kind of to your codifying, but almost on the opposite end of that, one thing that I've observed in context, even what we're talking about here, is the second you get a hallucination or some bad data into the system, it's real hard, or at least I found it incredibly hard to get out when it started to make stuff up and things along those lines. And so that's a whole watch out that that I'm constantly looking for. And I've had to restart entire projects or things like that because you can't always get it out again once it started to do that. And so we're at this interesting time where you can see the potential, you can see the power of all of it. The tools aren't quite there. And then we've got kind of this watch out that's lingering out here of just making things up still that can really hurt us from a brand perspective, right? It makes up a amazing statistic about a customer outcome. It's not real, but sounds great. But right, like how easy is that? And you have that context and that knowledge, and you have to know that case study to actually know that that's true or not. Like there's just so much of those different elements that we've got watch outs for, and then empowering people to have it be consistent. It's a whole mix right now.
Yeah,
Hmm.
just do you want to add to that, Sylvia?
Yeah, I was gonna say that even in the context of us building tools that whose entire purpose is to contextualize or like empower the context that we are getting as we were discussing, massive this disclaimer is that people cannot take those ideas and just like paste them, right? Like you can't just take that output and paste it. We have strong guardrails around specifically content generation where human review is inserted in at least three or more times in the output of one content piece or one article or anything that we're driving is always like we you can't skip that human intervention step for to prevent further ongoing hallucination, right? If you get an output of an outline for a content piece that already has hallucination or something is off, you gotta catch it at that stage, not after the content has already been produced. So inserting that human step super important.
I think that is a step towards operationalizing AI while being cognizant of deficiencies of AI, which is it can hallucinate and make up facts. And so having a process around, human in the loop and human reviews actually then, improves your reliance on the output. Right. So I think that's key. At Vidoso, what we're doing is we're building citations so that every piece of content that is actually produced is has granular citations on what is the source of that fact, whether it's a PDF or whether it's a video clip. So that's sort of, our way of, productizing citations and verifiability and proofs. Um, but I think, overall, what I'm hearing is so content is obviously a big, broad bucket, and I think we should talk about do we all feel that ChatGPT has solved content for marketing, or is there more to it? We did talk a lot about context engineering, and so I think that's one part of it, right? Which is content and contextual content is better than non-contextual content. How do you sort of operationalize that? And is ChatGPT enough? Like vast majority of the marketers, like ChatGPT has 93% of the market share in terms of marketing use, right? So is it like, okay, that is where the whole journey started and that's why marketers are using ChatGPT, or do we actually imagine we're actually going to get something better, right? So I think that's one part we should talk about. The other part of that I'm hearing is I think AI tooling, whether it's internally built or through MarTech, is still sort of very point solution stage in the whole evolution, which is for different media types, right? So for PowerPoint, you have one. For images, you have Midjourney. For content, you have this, right? For landing pages, you have something else. Um, and do you all feel that okay, at some point we will have too many point AI tools with like separate siloed databases of context, and you would actual marketers will want a single, or single canvas, as more integrated, more multimodal with like multimodal context, right? That works at a higher level versus various point solutions. So two questions. Let's start with the content piece. Do we believe, or your thoughts on, do you think ChatGPT is enough, or do you think there's a better way of doing things, and in future there will be a better way of sort of having contextual verifiable content generation?
Jeff, do you want to start this one?
Sure, happy to. I think I'd start with maybe someday. Maybe someday it will be enough. I think what led to its prevalence was its ease of use, right? It opens up with ask me anything. But you even like the blank paper issue that comes up with content writers and things like that. I've had some people freeze also when they're engaging even with GPT. What do I write? What do I prompt? Right. And so I still think there's a lot of mystery in it. Well, one thing I do think it's worth calling out in this group is all AI forward individuals. I've got a lot of friends and marketers and things like that. Um, that just aren't as AI forward. And I think there's kind of a lagging group that hasn't fully embraced it. And so it's still a simple to approach tool. But I'm not sure you're ever going to have something that's a one size fits all for everybody because your use cases and things like that are different. Maybe we will be pushed to have a contextual data layer that keeps the context consistent across it. I also think that innovation engineering, everybody's building on top of these tools like Was it Microsoft just announced they're going to include Claude or Anthropic's models inside of a Copilot along with GPT and things like that. There's a lot of great engineering that if you can bring it together around kind of these overarching buckets, I think that's where we're going to see kind of the industry to start to emerge. A lot of these point solutions will dissolve. Somebody else is just going to go build it, right? It'll be a part of a broader solution or platform. But I don't see a world in which there's one mega behemoth that's going to take it over for everything else. Just that I feel like the use cases are kind of too varied that you couldn't have really great AI in everything. You're going to have your expertise because,
Mm.
right, designers are very different than engineers in terms of they're just that human skill set that you're trying to replicate and things along those lines and the nuance to it. So I don't know that there will ever be a one size fits all. I think it'll consolidate around a few, but I think they're going to be building on top of some of the foundational models.
Yeah, and I would just add that, I think you mentioned quality. I think quality still matters, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
the is out, and whether the AI tool is building PowerPoints or images or content or landing pages, quality is still paramount. Because, we believe that if the quality is not there, then you're actually probably worse off because, you're going to have to re-edit off of a suboptimal starting point. Like, so you have sort of sacrificed your initial ingenuity to this, and now you're sort of, fixing something that is already broke. And you might have been better off just starting from scratch, right? So
Hmm.
and the other thing is I mean, AI is table stakes now, right? Nobody's really starting from scratch anymore, right? So I think that honeymoon period is over. Now the puck is shifting to, well, how do I get a production ready piece uh, done faster, right? So that's sort of our point of view, which is how do you sort of reduce the amount of edits that happen post the initial draft to actually get to a production ready, which is also performant. Like eventually, I think that's other piece, right? Which is it actually, does it know can it actually predict the performance of the piece it's generating? So one part is, on brand and speaks to your brand voice and your audiences, and the other is, okay, is it going to be performant, and is it performant
Hmm.
for generation and creation? Um, Sylvia, your thoughts on this?
Um, the best use of the AI tools that I've seen has been through, I guess you could say that tools or a tool like ChatGPT is a great assistant that can, do a lot of different tasks or support you in different tasks for you, but is it the best specialized assistant for your specific use case as a content marketer, as a demand person? No. The current best uses of AI that I've seen and use myself are through customly building out those tools today yourself, or using a tool that's highly experienced, very, very niched into a specific use case. Your question was like, is there going to be a time where all of them just come to one? I sort of feel like one really interesting experiment that we are conducting internally that I was involved in is we were building a tool for our sales team to use an engine to do account research before a meeting with a prospect, right? And you put in the name of the company and then it gives you outputs. And then it also checks in with Docebo's value proposition and it says, hey, you can uh, go to a company like Vidoso, for example, with these and these value props, with these and these entry points, because based on information available on the web, because based on the job titles that we're able to find, it feels like this could be a good entry point. This could be relevant. Here's some news that we found out around Vidoso, or if you're a public company, this is what they're saying on the earnings calls. Like, this is what seems to be important. Here's how you can relate to it. Anyways, we were building this really great, we thought, like account research tool for the team. And I was involved in that, right? So it's like switching roles into like product building for still marketing purposes, but ultimately the user at the end of the day, someone like a sales representative, I think doesn't want 15 tools that do 15 different things, right? And it's almost some of these evolutions that we see with even OpenAI, where later models begin to select the specific model for you. Why? Because as users, any friction point is going to be a potential bounce point. And when you make me, a marketer, decide what tool does what best, right there we insert friction. So I feel like we are just at the beginning point of understanding how to make AI serve us really well by use case. But I do think that eventually there's a big possibility that all of this will get, like simplified. Why? Because as users, we hate complexity. So I feel like that's kind of the way that things are moving.
Yeah, that's very insightful, Sylvia. I think essentially it's a quality friction trade-off. Um, I'll share sort of, a little more technical perspective. So, I mean, unlike the previous era of SaaS, which was essentially features, which were deterministic, um, and you could have companies start at different starting points and different collection of features, different products, but eventually consolidation was sort of natural and naturally needed both from like the user perspective in terms of friction, but also features are not that hard to build and integrate. In the world of AI, the outputs are non-deterministic, and every AI solution, and by the way, even between GPT-o3, GPT-5, Claude, the outputs are radically different. The structure, the formatting, the tone is radically different. And over time, people have built their preferences and so forth. So when we think about sort of consistent, repeatable, reliable use of AI, um, the element of quality is very critical, and how you architect it, whether it's a set of sub-agents or whether it's full context, actually has an impact on quality, and which is why I think we are sort of okay. Point solution, you've got to solve decks well, you got to solve content well, you got to solve these well. But as we sort of solve that layer, I think then eventually it's Sylvia, as you said, right? Then you need you know, to use a very old term, and I'll date myself, a single pane of glass, like classic enterprise boring term, right? I think that's where it starts to head to. Um, let's in the same vein, let's talk a little bit about the skill sets. So, Sarah, I would love for you to sort of chat about this. And the idea here is, because AI is making some things simpler, right? So AI is not the best creative strategist, but once some of the creative templates are created, it can actually create some creative copy, right? In other words, a demand generation person should be able to get, easy video clips and do click a few buttons, get a few creatives out, right? And content person should be able to do some creative work. Creative person should be able to actually, get use the same messaging and actually produce some emails and copy if needed. So there is a talk about okay, flattening of skills to a certain extent. Um, Sarah, what has been your experience as a head of marketing at a startup, lean teams, and then would love your thoughts, Sylvia and Jeff as well.
Yeah, I think that, you and I have talked about this a lot, and that's that marketing generalists are becoming more valuable because instead of having someone who is super specialized in life cycle marketing, for example, and planning out the whole email cycle and everything like that, someone who can be just great at messaging and understanding the goals can use AI as a partner to plan out maybe the specifics that they didn't know before, right? And I think too, I think you have the ability to get enough done with AI as your coworker to be able to kind of do the full funnel marketing. When before maybe because it was going to take more time, you didn't have that, you just needed to have more people, and now you can repurpose, you can like what Vidoso additionally started at was a video clipping service because so many marketing teams didn't have an in-house video team or had one video person that was completely overwhelmed. And that was kind of the story that we were telling. And I think that it's not just with video, it's with creative, it's with product marketing, it's with content marketing. And I think that the marketers that are going to succeed in this world, in the post AI world, are going to know what is the goal and how can I leverage my knowledge and creativity to scale that out across all the disciplines of marketing.
Yeah, I think you said it earlier, Sharad, and to quote a friend, Matt Hines, he was like, AI's led the world doesn't need more crappy SDR emails, right? And things like that. What I think it has tremendous ability to do, like, and I personally have done this several times. There are massive research reports that come out or best practices or all these different things. And I teach marketing at a university. I love geeking out on data, but also having the time to consume it and then remember it, or I'll read something like, "Ooh, I want to add that to my best practices." How do I do that? How do I make sure that that's fully internalized in this world of almost information overload? And I think it's really powerful at being able to do those things. Like, there was recently a thing on like the best cold outreach sequences after analyzing, it's like 10,000 different of them. I can read that. That's great. But now how do I operationalize that? AI helps me do that. I can actually quickly train a GPT or something to execute against that, and actually now start to write in that way without fully having to teach someone why we're doing it or this or that. What I've noticed on my teams kind of across the board, and I mentioned there are people who are definitely leaning in, and it's not really even an age or generational thing. It's just kind of an interesting curiosity thing. Like there are people who are full on leaning in, they want to experiment, they understand the limitations, but they're trying to figure out how to apply it. And then there are people who seem kind of intimidated by it still, and they're kind of holding back and they're not embracing it as much, which is just kind of an interesting behavior shift. And that's even in big tech companies and things like that. And so, kind of watching that behavior, I think we're going to see a new generation of marketers that kind of are an AI forward, AI first thinker. And it's going to be how do I orchestrate and architect go to markets and marketing plans and all these things with these AI, employees to some extent. And then you're gonna have some of those that are kind of laggard and they're gonna kind of go along with what the tool set is provided to them versus trying to connect the dots themselves. But a couple kind of interesting things, at least that I've observed in that space.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Sarah and Jeff shared. Specifically, I think just even in a larger marketing team, you see that AI makes you as a marketer a lot more limitless, meaning I don't need to be a data expert to analyze data anymore. I don't need to be a content marketer to write great data, great points, right? Across. I don't need to be a demand marketer to come up with great campaign ideas. So, do I still need to have great taste? Definitely. Do I still need to be like, have the right logic in my head and, understand the why and the intention? Absolutely. Because then you're just gonna create stuff, but it's gonna be noise. So I think ultimately it's making people that know how to empower themselves more boundless, right? More move faster, more independent, more empowered by it, right? Which I think it's awesome. It's also our job in leadership to continue to um empower everyone. And as Jeff was mentioning, not everyone is walking the same walk with it. So there's some people that are more independent and others need just, like in anything and when you're coaching and just, they need more encouragement, more clear paths, more onboarding, more support, more actual training and development. So, um, but honestly, I think like the marketing teams of the future are probably uh gonna stay lean. But the marketers that are in those teams are probably gonna be kick-ass and like hopefully better rewarded, right? Because lean teams is not a bad thing because it means that people in those teams are super powered and they are compensated really well and they are, very valuable. So
Yeah,
100%.
maybe I'll throw a slightly controversial opinion in here. I think we're similar. We're at a similar wave in marketing as what we saw, candidly, when the internet came out. not ABM or anything. I think it's like that foundational of going like to the internet existing. If you look back at what happened then, and this is probably too old for many people listening to this, they don't even remember a time without the internet, but it's uh, you had those who didn't embrace it at all, right? And most of them went out of business. You had those that dabbled because they kind of felt like they had to. My board, wants me to. It's a popular thing, etc. But they didn't embrace it as they really could or should have. Now that 2020 hindsight, and often a lot of those are people kind of closer to the end of their careers, things like that, where they're going to kind of retire and it's not ultimately going to impact them. And then you had those who full on embraced it. And I think we're seeing those similar behaviors. You've got those that are resistant to it, those that are dabbling, and those that are pursuing. And I think those that are pursuing are going to be the ones who are definitely going to come out on top. Sure, there's going to be stub toes and all kinds of stuff, right? We had the exact same thing when the internet came out. A lot of learning had to happen, then it centralized, and we've got what we have today. But I think you kind of have those buckets, and it's really important, I would say, for younger marketers to look at their marketing leaders and say, which of those do they fall into? If you're a leader, which of those am I falling into in terms of my own kind of behavior? And kind of try to at least dabbling, I would say pursuing as you're looking into that, because otherwise you will be left behind. People will have those skill sets and they will surpass you because that's going to be the skill set of tomorrow are these AI architects that can do the things that Sylvia was highlighting.
Yeah, I think the notion of AI architects is sort of a unique one, where in the previous world you would just be, executing your function. If you're a content marketer, you're writing content. But as you start to think about yourself as a builder, then you could be builder of systems. You can be builder of AI systems. You could, right? I think that's the powerful part, where if you think about in the old world, you have revenue operations and marketing operations that actually just build those systems. Now there's so much codification of memory and context that marketers can actually build stuff, right? That's pretty inspirational, right? So that's one. I think then the concept of shared memory, right? Essentially, you're creating a shared memory for everybody in the team, right? So which allows us to expand our skills and context, and sort of on at a mundane level, yeah, things move faster, there are fewer bottlenecks and so forth. But from a sort of personal experience level, I mean, you're doing end-to-end work. You're not just like on a single swim lane, right? And in the future, Sylvia, well, I 100% agree. I mean, especially as a founder, I've always had lean teams who punch above their weight class because there's a lot more ownership, there is a feeling of camaraderie, there is a lot more shared context. But if they're and if they're kick-ass, right? That's what it is. I think bloated teams with lots and lots of like sub functions. I was talking to one enterprise company who said, in my previous role, it took her like 3 months to get an email approved, right? Right. I mean, I think that just has to go. And the other reason why it has to go is because market is moving at the speed of light, right? I mean, there'll be a lot more AI native companies or even existing incumbents are becoming AI first. So market is moving at a tremendous speed. And so you have to be able to sort of respond and react to that, right? You have to be in the zeitgeist. And if you're taking 3 months to sort of approve an email, well, guess what? You're talking old news. So now let's talk maybe as we wrap this up, I think the dabbling part, like the dabblers. So I'm curious, right? So if you think about the world of engineering, coding, right? These engineers are training the AI to write code better than themselves, and they're all fired up about it. No one's saying, "Oh, AI is coming to take our jobs." They're all fired up about training the AI to, build better AI, right? They're on that positive hamster wheel of, better AI. Marketers, on the other hand, have that apprehension, right? So how do we make dabblers more comfortable with AI, that really it's really a tool? And sure, the job definitions might change, the shape might change, but you know, you will still be in control, and you will still have your creativity, and you still have the context, and you still know what to do with AI. AI is still a tool. So curious as to how you might have sort of implemented some change management and just acceptance of AI in your organizations.
Um, I think a lot of fear comes from lack of awareness, right? Like you are afraid of something when you don't know what it is, when you understand what it is and uh, its benefits or the role that it plays, things, like you turn on the light and then things don't seem that mysterious or scary anymore. So I think just sometimes a lot of that is lack of lack of knowledge shared. I think those people that are innovators and are out there and like, tell you like the MCP is doing this and that and this model, and imagine you're someone that does not understand what any of these acronyms mean. It just seems like, oh my God, I'm like years and years behind already, right? Like that is so scary. How am I gonna catch up? So I think training and enabling people uh, in creating spaces where people share informally what they're doing and how they're doing it is important for those that are not yet as active in embracing all of this change. And then I also think like some gentle enforcement of it alongside it too. Like for example, we work with OKRs and, objectives, key results, or even if you don't, like through team metrics, like having an objective for each individual to run XYZ AI related things, right, to like make it part of the team culture. That has been something important here, which is we are a team that is embracing this. Yeah, sure. Some people are like sprinting ahead and others are just, jogging along, but we all have active experiments, active projects, active things. Why? Because it's part of our objectives. It's kind of enforced where you have to run 2 projects a quarter that are powered by AI. How, why? Like it's up to you, but ultimately, it kind of creates this culture where everyone begins slowly talking about it more. But I certainly think that education, right, like enabling teams is something that is going to become more and more important as things continue to change almost every day, right? Like bringing everyone up to speed.
What's funny is you don't have to be an AI expert. You just need to be a little ahead of the curve as you kind of look at it. And I think it's a good way to think about that for a lot of people is if you're just 10% better than most, you're going to be seen as a leader in the space. And that doesn't take a lot as you go through that. So when it gets to dabbling in that whole concept, like I had content people who were terrified as we started to build things for writing copy, blogs, right? What is this going to do to my job? Because that was my unique value. And it was like, well, now you're going to be playing more of a content strategist and editor as opposed to the original writer, right? In which then we had others do that. And so starting to get them thinking on it. The other hard reality was we had some candid conversations of like, it's not now, but at some point, right, it will get really, really good. So you should start embracing that. You should start looking at it and figure out where it's not good and how you can plug in to that, which is in that strategist. What are the connected dots between these different pieces? How do you promote it? Making sure it has that human element still that stands out. Because right, more content isn't necessarily good, right? AI looks out for AI and all those different kinds of things. We also ran an AI hackathon, which was a really big deal where we had mentors who were, a little bit ahead of the curve, who are tinkering in other tools and things like that. I think if you've got people around you, ask to build something with them. I think that's probably one of the most intimidating things is just opening it up and getting started. Like, how do I go to do that? I was just helping somebody build a GPT yesterday that we're messing around with of like, how would we do this? What would we do? And it's really not that hard, but the intimidation of getting started, that first step, can be a big deal. Actually, a funny side, like I was recently in my personal world using GenSpark, a new tool I stumbled across, the AI super agent that they were using, and I got a bunch of I helped lead a Cub Scout den and I had to give a presentation. I just put in my stuff and my thoughts and everything in there. I got a killer presentation out of it. It was amazing. And all the devs were like, wow, that took forever. I was like, actually, it didn't take much. I put my thoughts in there, I put it into a great visual thing that looked great. And I was able to present it and it was accurate. And it got some of the other parents even starting to think about that. So even in your personal life, like using Canva and that stuff, like if you've got a poster to design for your kid's school or something like that, use Canva. It's got great AI, right? Like those types of things are out there where you can start dabbling in your personal life that might be less risky than in work. If you're a little intimidated, touch it there, reach out and build stuff together, and then maybe propose like a hackathon or some sort of idea or a coaching session. Those are all really good things that you can do.
Sarah, you want to share any thoughts on your AI adoption journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I also use it a lot for personal when I'm trying to figure out how my son is hacking his parental controls on his phone. And I truly like, I mean, it's like hours of trying to fix it, right? And so I think that there is I think experimentation is key in every area, but like we said, eventually setting up guardrails and really understanding where are the benefits, because there is I do believe with content writing it's better to start with something original and have AI improve it and repurpose it versus having it completely generated by AI. It takes so long to reprompt and reprompt and reprompt that it's not worth it, right? And so I think as AI evolves to, like what we're trying to do at Vidoso, where we're putting in brand guardrails and voice guidelines, then it actually does become a force multiplier versus something where you're just experimenting forever and it takes longer to prompt than it did to do the original way. So I think that kind of building those systems is really important.
So all the way from gentle parenting to OKRs and team metrics to Jeff, as you said, start tinkering, start learning. That the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. It's going to be here. So here is the way we evolve in conjunction with AI, right? It's going to be good at some things and not good at other things, and actually use that as an opportunity to elevate yourself. Um, I think personally, and I'll just share an anecdote. My daughter, she was building a poster, something for school, and she has Chromebook, and she started using Gemini. And I said, hey, look, you can actually get the initial sort of visual done, and we put a prompt, and it was an incredible result. And she's like, okay. Right? And then she wanted to make some changes, new prompt, and the result changed, and the visual changed, but not in a way she wanted it to. And she got like, what is this? Right? Totally frustrated, like we would be with any other tool. And I was like, this is still magical. Do you know how long it'll take to do that? Right? So I think this new generation is certainly living, with AI as the default. That is, internet is like AI is the default, as internet was a default for us. But thank you all for joining. I wanted to wrap this up by sharing that if you wanted to give Vidoso a try, we are a system of codification of marketing rules. We help you generate content, both video and text, at the campaign level. We're launching campaigns next week, which is essentially a better version of custom GPT, where you can add context like documents and videos and create your recipe and playbooks of assets, so that every time you run the campaign, you can pre-generate 30, 40, 50 assets written in your brand voice, tailor for every persona, and very soon, optimize for every language. So our goal is to help, AI become accessible for marketers and create that shared memory and shared context, so that every time when you generate content, it's consistent, on brand, on message. So you all can focus on storytelling and your audience mapping and your higher level goals and pipeline and revenue and market strategy, versus worrying about the plumbing and the mechanics of content and context and sharing. So thank you all. Sylvia, thank you for all your thoughts. Jeff, thanks. Thank you. Sarah, thank you. And we will see you everybody, see you all in a month from now. So our next episode is going to be sometime towards late October. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye now.